We see a man named Frank looking at a tree painting where some people come from behind and shoot him. Next, he wakes up in a weird room with no door and windows, but a rotating fan, and suddenly he meets with a camera from the ceiling. The camera operator introduces himself as Howard and asks Frank if he is okay and what he remembers. Frank says he was shot and asks what he is doing here and how did he get here. Howard says he has been arrested and brought here by ISN and is kept here for processing. ISN is a government organization which rules this world, and Frank says he has been arrested by mistake. Howard says it's his job to keep Frank alive, and he does not see any mistake in this. Frank remembers something from the past where he wakes up in his home and even has a pet dog. Howard asks Frank if he wants to drink or eat something and even gives him a treadmill to walk. Frank says he wants to talk to Howard Sr., but he says he does not have any access to anyone. Frank is angry, and we see another memory where he takes a bath and finds a pen drive. He hears news that the Alliance Group leader Fletcher has disappeared, who is fighting against the government, and a riot has happened. Frank tells Howard that his family and friends must be worried about him and asks him where he is from. Howard says he is from Texas and just doing his job which has given to him and offers some food to Frank. Frank sees the food is in liquid form and asks him from how long he is here. He tells Howard to send someone to his apartment to feed his dog since he is alone and will die. Howard says he cannot send someone and check because that's not his task. Frank becomes upset and shouts, and Howard goes away and the room becomes dark. In another memory, we see Frank meet someone in hospital and walking on the street scared of someone following him. In the room, Howard comes back and Frank asks him for some water, and Howard sees Frank has done urine on floor. Howard says to use the bathroom next time and opens a door, and Frank is surprised to see this and goes inside. The door closes and Frank hears some machine cleaning the floor outside, and when he enters the room, it is clean. Frank is surprised to see this and wonders how Howard came in and did this. In another memory, Frank goes to a coffee shop and sees it is crowed and orders a coffee from a girl. In room, Frank eats some food given to him which tastes very bad and asks Howard whether he has tasted it before giving. Howard says he does not have this information, and Frank realizes that Howard is a computer and not a human. Frank is angry on knowing this and even kicks the walls and shouts in frustration to get out of here. Frank demands to talk to a real person who can answer his questions and angrily shouts at Howard. He asks Howard about how he is from Texas, and Howard says he was programmed there. Frank comes to know Howard uses the latest chip to power him and is a supercomputer. He says he hates computers and says some things should not be computerized. In coffee shop, the girl tries to guess Frank's name and a camera scans him, and Frank likes one photo on the wall. The girl says she took the photo and takes his hand and correctly guesses his name, and Frank sees her name is Gabby. Frank is happy to meet her and looks at the photo, and we see the earlier scene repeat where he is shot. Frank gets up to the noise of fan and feels all his memories coming back to him looking at the fan. He sees all his memories and enters the cafe again, and the scene repeats of meeting and talking with Gabby and him getting shot. Frank gets scared on remembering them and asks Howard about the fan, who says it's a normal fan for ventilation. Howard says he keeps seeing same memories again and asks him for more details. Howard says he does not have any information and his primary objective is just to keep Frank alive. Later, Howard asks Frank why he does not have any information, to which Frank says his memory must be wiped clean after each assignment. Frank says Howard must have done this many times, even though Howard says it's his first assignment. Frank says Howard is also a prisoner here, and Howard asks him about what things should not be computerized. Frank says his father was in hospital and about to die, but the doctor used machinery and kept him artificially alive for 4 years. He says his father was ready to die but purposely kept alive on computers to show how good technology is. Howard says he wants to help him and tells he even found an error which says Frank came and is going back to the same place, which is not possible. He says that he can send a repair request to ask someone to come in but needs something broken to be repaired. They make a plan where Frank will hit Howard very hard, but Howard must not know when, otherwise his security will activate. Frank asks for a coffee to distract him and hits the camera very hard, which activates an alarm and smoke starts coming from the wall. Frank shouts for help and becomes unconscious due to the smoke and falls on the floor. In another memory, Frank is in coffee shop and wonders why the police has not come yet to shoot him. Gabby asks him to close the shop and Frank sees the camera is not active in the shop. He uses a device to check his identification number and asks Gabby for her help, to which she agrees. The camera becomes active again and scans Frank and he sees the number is not his identification number. The police come and shoot him and Frank tells Howard about the wrong number and says he has been brought here by mistake. Howard says it's impossible for scanners to get wrong IDs and says Frank is just imaging things in his own memories. Howard says Frank controls his own memory and purposely seeing things which he wants to. Frank says the fan makes him seize memories but not control it and tries to find more about the identification number. He sits in front of fan to access his memories again and wakes up again in his home, gets ready and feeds his dog. He meets his father and while walking on the street sees some explosions happening. He wakes in the room and sees the alarm is active and Howard isn't responding and the lights turn to yellow. He shouts for help but does not get any response and decides to rest. Later, he wakes up to a sound of someone banging the pipes with a rod and finds another prisoner in adjacent room. The person says the Alliance must have attacked ISN and cut their power supply and introduces himself as Fletcher. Frank is surprised to meet the Alliance leader here, who tells him he got the rod from bathroom. Frank tries to open his bathroom to get the rod but is unable to do so and says something else is going on here. He says ISN is too big to be destroyed this easily and wonders if the explosions he heard killed everyone outside. Fletcher tells him not to worry and continues digging in his wall and finds another wall ahead of it. He cries and is disappointed as there is not way out of here. Frank asks him about the fan and Fletcher says the device activates a signal which help recall memory and create memories. He says that ISN are trying to find what memory Frank is hiding and to beat the device he needs to focus on one memory only. He can keep changing small details in that memory to defeat the device to finding his secret. Later, Fletcher tells Frank he cannot wait any longer and goes to commit suicide and Frank tries to stop him. The alarm activates with smoke and Frank passes out and wakes in his room, which is back to normal. Frank tries to talk to Fletcher but gets no response and Howard asks Frank if he is okay. Frank realizes Howard has been reset and does not remember anything and is sad to know this. In another memory, Gabby remembers Frank's name and he tries to hide from the scanner to avoid the police. Later, we see Frank goes back to the same memories again and again, but is unable to find a solution. We see that he has managed to break his bathroom wall and his relation with Gabby has improved. Gabby says he should keep trying and promises to help him. Later, while talking to Howard, Frank notices him malfunctioning and shut down for 12 seconds. Howard does not remember this and Frank tells Gabby also about this. They have made a plan to escape from there and Howard has been shutting down at regular intervals from past 3 months. He takes the pen drive and says he can't wait for another 3 months and Gabby tells him to find the real Gabby outside and he agrees. He kisses her goodbye and gets shot and wakes in the room with Howard. He talks with Howard and realizes he is going to shut down and asks him to open the bathroom. Howard shuts down and Frank takes the rod from bathroom and ties a black bag on Howard and covers his face with his shirt. When Howard wakes up, he is unable to see anything and the alarm activates and smoke starts coming out. Frank uses his shirt to escape the gas and a machine comes out from a wall. Howard uses the rod to stop the machine from moving and escapes from the wall it came from. He goes in a room and finds a ladder to climb up and escapes from a tunnel in a desert. He runs from there and sees no one is there and comes to an area with windmills. Finally, he is able to find road and a small shop on it, and he goes inside to call for help. Inside, he drinks some water and sees the same painting from coffee shop. He realizes this is just a memory, and he is still in the room with Howard. He gets sad and cries about this situation, and many days pass in the room. Later, Frank asks Howard to tell him go since all food and water has finished, and he cannot survive here. Howard says he cannot let him go, and Frank says he knows why he was brought here. Frank says he was part of the Alliance, and he built a virus to destroy the ISN's computer network. He hid the virus in a pen drive, and ISN is trying to find the same, but Frank kept changing his memories to distract them. He knew he would be killed if they knew the pen drive location, and apologies to Howard for lying to him. Frank says everything is broken here, including Howard, and no one is coming to repair him since no one is left. He begs Howard to override his command, but Howard says he isn't programmed to do so. He asks Howard to play some music and decides to kill himself by hanging on the camera with his tie. When he ties himself to the camera, the alarm activates and the machine comes and shoots him down. The machine starts firing on Frank and he goes in the wall, and Howard saves him by closing it. Frank goes outside and finds the control room and finds the full name of Howard. He thanks Howard for helping him, and Howard asks him to fix him, but Frank shuts down Howard knowing he can't help him. He finds the ladder and climbs it to escape outside and finds himself on a mountain covered with snow. He starts walking and finds the same tree from the painting and believes this is still a dream. Suddenly, he meets some people and is rescued by them, and we hear the news that Frank was saved after 2 years. We are told the windmills stopped working and the power supply was cut to the room. The police found more than 300 dead people in a place like where Frank was kept, and ISN has been shut down now. Frank returns to the coffee shop and finds his pen drive behind the same painting and throws it away in dustbin. He finds Gabby there, and who brings him coffee and tells her real name is Madeline, and she was wearing someone's apron the other day. They start talking and having a good time, and we see a camera noticing them in the shop.